Hey, this is our second episode of Designing What's Next. In this series, we explore work in the post-COVID world by asking 5 questions in 5 minutes. Today, we're going to talk about our favorite informal shared spaces by talking to Lew Epstein, who's the general manager for Coalesse and Turnstone. Lew recently moved to New York City, so I started our conversation by asking him about his quarantine.
I've been a distributed worker since the late 80s, off and on. So I'm accustomed to working from home. And in that sense, I'm very fortunate and was prepared for an unexpected pandemic. But what I wasn't prepared for is the different experience now that I've moved to New York after living in the San Francisco Bay Area for 23 years. And one of the key things that we talk about in terms of how do we change the workplace as a result of COVID-19, density is one of the critical issues. And density is Manhattan and the adjacent area, which is where I live. I'm incredibly fortunate to have moved into a historic district and a building that has a courtyard. And so that courtyard is a green space. It's a beautiful garden. It's the go-to refuge for everybody in this area. And I couldn't have imagined how much I would need that every day. Absolutely. And the reason is the workplace would be incomplete without them. If you look back through time, and I mean as far back as you want, there have always been gathering spaces, places for communities to come together in any kind of an organization throughout history. And so could you imagine everyone saying, no more? And when you think about one of the purposes of an organization is to create a sense of community, a sense that you belong to this blank. And when I say blank, it could be a corporation, it could be a religious institution, it could be a civic institution, but there's a reason for belonging, a reason for creating community. It has a culture, and that culture needs a center. And so it's not just about, I came here to work, I sat at my desk, I was shielded and appropriately protected. There has to be something more to the workplace, and it's always been there. So it'll find its next incarnation. I'd say the first thing is those spaces are most known as meeting spaces, spaces for socialization, for collaboration, in some cases for individual focus, and in many cases for rejuvenation. It's hard to imagine a workplace without provisioning the workforce for those kinds of work modes. When you have those spaces and they are really well created, the right tools, the right technology, all dialed in to truly support those work modes, those are the reasons why we go to the workplace. Because the office should be, and most often is, far better provisioned than what we can do in our own homes. People have patched together what they can do from a home office by and large to adapt and to work through this pandemic. But the workplace is the best place for getting work done. What's so interesting is this is a response to something which is, it's almost visceral. It's our response to how we feel about safety. And so they'll naturally block off areas. They will tape it off with an X. And so the means of them trying to make the space be safer actually has a language of almost fear or warning. And if instead you had a soft blanket, a throw over a portion of a sofa to indicate, don't sit here. That's a much softer way to tell the same message. If you introduce plants as space division as opposed to hard screens, it's serving the same purpose. And in fact, the denser the planting configuration, like a freestanding living wall, it's adding fresh air to the environment. It's more acoustic. It's a clear barrier between spaces. It can also help redirect traffic. Attraction is key to a person, a place, or a thing. But it's the performance of the products, the integration of technology, the tools that you might need for the purpose of why did we come here to meet? Was this a social engagement? Was it about collaboration? If it's about collaboration, what phase might we be in? If it's about generative collaboration, then we have a deep body of knowledge and research behind the tools, the configurations, the kinds of technology that really help you excel. And so it becomes this real important balance between appearance and performance. And by applying the research that we've conducted throughout the years, we believe we understand how to transform these spaces to be harder working and perform at a higher level. One of the things which is fascinating about a time like this is, what can a pandemic teach you? And the last thing I think on our minds as designers and creators is that an informal, ancillary space needs to deliver on safety. And that safety needs to hit on two different levels. It has to be the evidence of safety, the science behind it, where you can say, I can quantify that this space is more safe for you. But it also has to address the feeling of safety, that sense of safety.